So as we continue, God speaks our love language. We've had several that we've looked at so far: the words of affirmation, the quality time, the gifts, and then tonight we're going to be looking at acts of service. And I've got a few little things that I want to do to start out, a few little things to share. And after that, there's a few scriptures that I want to point out. And can I go ahead and put a few people on the spot? Brian, do you mind reading a little bit later for me Mark 10, verses 42 through 45? And Renette, do you mind doing Luke 22, verse 24? I think that'll be the verses, and I'm going to just refer to John 13 and then have them to read those verses from other places. But to get started tonight, I was reading about a minister that was wanting his congregation to show acts of kindness in the community and get different people from within the church to go out and help some. And so he called up a grocery store, and the young lady that answered the phone asked if she could help, and he said, yep, told her who he was and what they were wanting to do, and sharing what they wanted to do. He said, we would like to come, and we would like to clean up your parking lot. We would like to retrieve all the loose carts and help keep the buggies, in order. We'd like to bring umbrellas and help either if it's raining or sunny or whatever, help shade people or protect people coming in and out of your store, and just do lots of things like that just to try to be a blessing and a help to you. And she said, now let me get this right. You're wanting to come and just do all these things and you don't want anything? I said, no ma'am, we just would like to come show kindness to you and to your customers. And would it be all right for us to do that? She said, I'm not sure. She said, I need to talk to my manager. And so he was waiting on the line for a little while, and finally she comes back and she says, I'm sorry to tell you, but we cannot allow you to do that, because if we allow you to do that, then we'd have to allow everybody else to do that too. That's the politically correct world that we're living in right now. Somebody was wanting to do acts of kindness, and then it thought it would create a problem if they did it. The other one I wanted to share with you to sort of break in tonight, I know in our reading we read a lot about Mother Teresa, but as she was working in the slum areas of India, there was a leopard that she was working with that she was tending to his wound, and there was an American tourist that was there, and the tourist asked if he could take pictures of her working with this leper, and she said that he could. And so he's taking pictures and he's watching her and how she's showing love and tenderness to this leper, and also how she's being so tender with this wound and everything she's doing that. And he looks at her and said, I wouldn't do that if you gave me $10 million. And she said, I wouldn't either. Do you get it? She wasn't doing it for the money. She was doing it out of love. And of course, we're talking about how God speaks our love language. And as a church, we're talking about how we need to love God and love others. And that's so vitally important. And definitely in Mother Teresa's life, we see that quite a bit. And then the other thing that I wanted to share with you, there was a pastor and a missionary. They were in Guatemala, if I'm saying that right. I might not be saying that exactly right. Guatemala, not guacamole. I'm thinking about, I'm hungry. Guatemala. So she hadn't fed me yet, so maybe we're going to eat Mexican after this. I don't know. So the missionary and the pastor were taking a boat tour, and on this boat tour there was also a Spanish gentleman. He was actually an ambassador for his country. There was a French couple, there was a German couple, and there was two Guatemalans, if I'm saying that correctly, on here as tour guides that were helping them out. And so this Spaniard, being an ambassador for his country, he was multilingual. He was able to speak a lot of languages. And he was able to speak the German, he was able to speak the French, he was able to speak Spanish and English. One that he didn't need on the boat, but he was able to speak, was Chinese. But he was able to communicate to everybody on that boat in their own language. And so the important thing that I'm sharing with you there, like physical languages, people are able to speak more than one. When we're talking about God's love language, and God speaks our love language, but also we're thinking about how we need to be helpful to others and considerate of others and try to understand what their love language is so we can better identify with them. The bottom line is we need to be multilingual when it comes to God's love languages. We need to be able to speak all of them. Maybe not fluently, but we need to be able to speak all of them, so whoever God puts on our boat, we're able to help fill up their love tank. Are you with me? Okay. So tonight, I want to ask you a few questions. And this has got to do with acts of service. How many of you like it when someone does the cleanup after dinner? How many of you like that? Nobody else? Listen, I love Lauren. I love Anna. But if Lauren and Anna decides to cook, maybe not Anna quite as much, and Lauren might hear this, but if sometimes Lauren will get where she wants to bake something or cook something, but you know what's always left? A sink full of dishes. And so who usually does that?
Daddy.
I usually clean them up for her. I used to fuss a little more. I don't fuss as much anymore, but I clean them up for her. So I definitely like it if we're able to sit down at a meal and the kids clean up afterwards and we're done. We just get to sit there and relax. What about washing, or what about if somebody washes your vehicle and vacuums your car out? Do you like it when somebody does that?
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Kathy's looking at me right now. Your car needs to be what? Washed and vacuumed, right? What about...
Andy, I don't remember.
Do what now?
I don't remember.
You don't remember?
No.
Oh, me. What about if someone makes your bed? Do you like that? Well, Kathy and I usually work together on that. But a lot of times, who does it? Miss Kathy. And I appreciate it very much. I do. That's a big, big help. What about, and maybe this doesn't apply a whole lot to us, but what if you were working like in an office and you had a bunch of folders on your desk and you had a bunch of work to get done, and somebody else come up and picked up about half the folders and said, hey, I want to help you out. I'm going to do this for you. Would you like that?
I did that for somebody today.
You did that today?
For somebody.
All right. Did you hear that? Pete is on the ball. Good. So if these type things fill your love tank, then guess what? Your love language is probably acts of service, or is probably high on your list. And I know acts of service is one of the ones that's sort of up a little bit on my list. Now, I told you that we'd read a couple scriptures here in just a minute, and we will, from Brian and Renette said that they would help out. But I want you to think about Jesus for a minute, and I know we had some in our reading. But what were some ways that Jesus showed acts of service to people? There's one in my mind that it tells us about it in our reading, but it was a no-brainer to me. One of the things that he did at one point in his ministry that is just obvious.
He washed the disciples' feet.
Are all of you sort of on that same page? He washed the disciples' feet. And in John chapter 13, you can read starting with verse number 1 down through verse number 17, and it goes through that whole thing. And of course, this was just prior to him being crucified. And you read that, and when it comes time to do that, who gets up from the table, fixes the water, girds himself, and goes around and washes the feet? It's Jesus that does that. To me, that is just amazing to me. But it's even more amazing when we consider some scriptures that surround that. Now in John 13, it gives a good account, but there's a statement that's made in Luke chapter number 22. If Renette will read to us, and hopefully everybody can hear, so share that. Yeah.
A dispute also arose among them as to which of them was considered to be the greatest.
So now they're partaking of the Last Supper, if you will. Jesus is getting ready to be crucified. They've just finished the meal, and there's a dispute that arises. Who's the greatest of them? And they're sitting there trying to figure out the pecking order, if you will, type thing. And so here they're concerned about this, but they don't seem concerned about maybe the minor issue of the feet needing to be washed. And so as they arguing about who's the greatest one at that table? Jesus. Who gets up and does the chore that needs to be done? Is Jesus. And that amazes me. They're wondering who's the greatest. No doubt it's Jesus, but he gets up and washes their feet. And he tells us to go and do likewise. He tells us to do those acts of service, those acts of kindness to others. If you will, Brian, please read Mark chapter 10, verses 42 through 45.
But Jesus called them to himself and said to them, "You know that those who are considered rulers over the Gentiles lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you, but whoever desires to become great among you shall be your servant. And whoever of you desires to be first shall be slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life a ransom for many."
So Jesus didn't come to be served, but he come to serve, and he set the example for us. So should we all speak the love language of acts of service to some degree? Yes, we should. Now, does that mean acts of service is our main love language? No. But I think like with all of the love languages, we all should be able to do each one of them in some capacity. But certainly when it comes to acts of service, Jesus made it clear that all of us should be willing to try to reach out and do those acts of kindness and those acts of service. And that's really what greatness is all about, is helping to serve others, if you will. All right, as we pick up in our book on page 79, and I want y'all to help out now. There's a guy named Paul Brown, and not really, you're right, it's a fake name, because he didn't want to name the real person. And really, with some of these people, with him being in Winston-Salem or whatever, we might would know some people, you know, if he put their literal names in here in some instances. But anyway, this guy is pretty amazing. He is not married at the age of 42. So in my mind, I'd be thinking, there's something wrong with this guy. You know, I don't know if his personality, I don't know if how he looks or something like that. That's what I'd be thinking. But then what we realize as we read on, it's got nothing to do with his looks or his personality per se, but it's got to do with his dedication in helping out others. And so he doesn't know if he would be able to be a good husband if he's trying to reach out and do all these acts of service, and mainly tutoring and helping kids out. And it's amazing, he's given the low group, sort of in math. Other people have kids that they don't have to work as hard with. And here he is, not only spending time in classroom trying to make sure they get it, but he's given his time after school for free to try to tutor them to make sure that they're able to pass the exams and the tests and things of that nature that they need to do. So he's a pretty amazing person. So one, is there anything from what was shared about him that really jumps out at you that maybe I didn't just say? And then we'll go ahead and do question number 1 in the back if there's no response to that. But does anybody else have anything that sticks out to you about Paul Brown in this?
He's definitely dedicated.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to better the life of students because of the hardships he had been through,
Yeah.
getting to that position of health.
Yeah. And there, yeah, go ahead.
I love how he sees God in all of it. On page 80, the second to last paragraph, he says, "Let me tell you something God gave me." And he tells about the ABCs.
Yeah.
So I like how he recognizes that he's not doing that on his own, that God's in the midst of all of that.
Right. And you sort of know as you read about him that God is very important to him, because in school he initially was going to school to be a math teacher or along that line, but then because of his love for God and wanting to be able to communicate and share and witness and things for God, it's been a little while since, but didn't he change to communication? And so, but then he ends up going back to school after that and getting a master's, didn't he, for the math type thing, because that's where his heart was, but that's where God was using him. But yeah, it was a God thing. And so that's important. I like that. Yeah.
I think too, it takes the spouse of the teacher has to be understanding, because that's.
It is.
You
Yeah. 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 But I'm gonna be honest with you. I've worked with a lot of good teachers, really with a lot of excellent teachers. Some maybe not so much, but a lot of them would give extra time. But I don't know of any that gave this much time and tutored that long after school and not get any pay for it. That's pretty amazing, because didn't it say he would stay like from 3 to 8 and sometimes from 3 to 10? That's a lot of extra hours, or 3:30 or whatever it was. That's a lot of extra hours that you're putting in. So very commendable. And we'll go ahead, if you'll turn over to page 89. Since we discussed him a little bit, we'll go ahead and ask a question and see. I'm sure some of you have some good input with this, but the first question there, Miss Kathy, can you read that?
Do you know anyone like Paul Brown who places acts of service above everything else, even his or her own personal benefit?
So do y'all know anyone like Paul that does that gives of themselves and their time that much to help out? other people those acts of service? Anybody got anyone that comes to mind?
Yeah, I was thinking about Billy Graham. He certainly, I don't know of any pastor that has reached 1 million people, and they had made over his ministry 3 billion. And that's,
You were breaking up a little bit, David.
I mean,
Did y'all hear him talking about Billy Graham is a person that he shared, and certainly the amount of time and stuff he put in. And I think we've had this discussion a little bit before. One of the things with him, he was sort of a pioneer as far as getting into radio and TV and some of those avenues, being one of the first ones to use some of those avenues and stuff. And doing all that type stuff was was time consuming, but other things, giving himself to help other people out, I agree that he would probably fall close in that category. Anyone else?
I don't know Rhonda Sawyer's, how she works. She expressed to us on Sunday that there's only so much she can do, and when she gets to that point, she knows that there's somebody God's going to send to take care of that person. And I thought that was really good. Somebody else that does access service all the time is Renee Garner.
Yeah, she said Renee. Yeah, and that's I can see that, can understand that. Yep.
You can't deny, you look right across there, Rex, she's done it for years.
Yeah, and I know sometimes Rex says that it's harder, and I know he can't do like maybe he used to, but he's still working hard. He's still going. Yep. Good guy. Yep. All right. So the last part of that says, to what extent does the person's Christian commitment motivate him or her? So I think most of the people that we have expressed, that I've heard say, that it probably is the Christian commitment that's propelling them, sort of like what Carla pointed out about Paul, is he gave credit to God for giving him wisdom to help them finally get how to move the decimal. And, certainly the communications part of his education, and then coming back and forth there, that we can see that it was his Christian commitment that helped him. But also I think on those that we just shared in here amongst us, that we would say too, that would be a strong motivating factor of their love for God that did that.
Well, I think too, when I think of acts of service, it's easier to see that as a true gift than a lot of the other gifts, because if you don't have a gift of service, when you get tired, you're going home and do nothing. But these people that have this gift, they continue to give, even when they're wore out and tired, and got 1,000 other things going on. They've got one more thing they got to do. They got one more thing they got to do. And I think to me, that is an easy, I don't know what you would call it, but to know that that's a gift from God.
Yeah.
Because you're giving to someone else.
Yeah.
Something easier for you.
I don't know if you could hear what Brian said, but definitely it's in a gift from God category there, because a lot of people, after doing so much, they're going to be tired and they're going to go home. But if it's truly, in a sense, your love language or your gift from God, then even when you're wore out and tired, you still have that motivation to continue on and keep pressing on to do that. That's a very good point, Brian. I like that. Very good. Yep. Well, next in our book, we come to Mother Teresa, and just tremendous amount of great things, no doubt, that she did. And I've got a few things listed here, and y'all can add to that, but I know one of the things she had was the Missionaries of Charity. She had the Home for the Dying, there was I think if I remember, there was somebody on the street drying and helped care for it, and so she saw that as a need, and so she started a place for people who were in that dying stage. What is an organization that does that now? Hospice is something we're all familiar with. But also she started children's homes, she started homes for lepers, homes for AIDS, homes for unwed mothers. She would see a need and she would work to get something accomplished to help out for that need. And she gave of herself in a huge way to do that. Whether it was seeing abandoned children in parks, or just the poor and the needy. And there's many illustrations, I guess, of that in here. And of course, on a world scene, she won the Nobel Prize in 1979. Now, I meant to look that up. When somebody wins the Nobel Prize, how much money do they receive? Does anyone know?
Million.
Like $1 million.
Yeah, they do too. It's a big. How much?
$1 million.
$1 million. Well, you know, did she keep the money? She put it right back in to doing things for people. Is that?
What I love about this is that she saw Jesus.
Yes. Now that's what I want to read some. I don't know, but yes, I love that. She saw Jesus. Yes. I'm going to be honest with you. I never studied much about Mother Teresa. This sparked my interest a little bit. And y'all going to think bad of me probably. But I thought of Mother Teresa, which I know she was part of a convent type thing, but I was just thinking nun. And that's probably not even the right terminology or whatever, but that's sort of, I knew she had done a lot of good things, but this was just really good to me reading this. And was it meaningful to you guys reading through about her life? A lot of y'all may already understood a lot of this about her.
I forget who wrote the book. There's a book out there about her life. It's amazing.
Yeah.
If I can find the title of it.
That's probably a book I wouldn't mind reading that.
The things she's accomplished, or did accomplish, with what she had to work with.
Yeah.
And that's, she had God working with her.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was, I don't know if it was in this reading, y'all can remind me if it is or not, or if it was something else I was reading as I was looking at some of this, but somebody said that when it comes to acts of service, sometimes we might have a list or things, but said the most important thing is be open and know what God's to-do list is. Be sensitive to God so you know what His to-do list is. And I think people like Paul, like Mother Teresa, they were sensitive to God moving and working in their lives, and they knew what God's to-do list was, and they acted upon that.
Okay, and I agree with that totally. Actually, I agree with your more on page 83. She says, God made me see what He wanted me to do.
Yep.
And I don't know, I'm not saying I think God showed her what He wanted her to do, but I don't think God made her see it. I think she chose, she was open.
Yeah.
She was
Open to it.
To see, because at the end of the day, sometimes I think, Lord, where did I miss today what you were prompting me
Yeah.
that I didn't do? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
I think God does that, but I think He don't like shine in your face and say, this is what you gotta do. I think we have to be receptive to that.
Yeah. Yeah. Be sensitive to it. Yep. So on page 84, actually it's the first full paragraph. I probably could read all the way through all of 85, but just some of this is just so meaningful to me. To view Mother Teresa as simply an unusually altruistic person is to miss the central message of her life. As she explained, whoever the poorest of the poor are, they are Christ for us. Christ under the guise of human suffering. And the missionaries of charity are firmly convinced that each time we offer help to the poor, we really offer help to Christ. On another occasion, she said, when we touch the sick and the needy, we touch the suffering body of Christ. And again, Jesus is the one we take care of, visit, clothe, feed, and comfort. Every time we do this for the poorest of the poor, to the sick, to the dying, to the lepers, and to the one who suffers from AIDS, we should not serve the poor like we should not serve the poor like they were Jesus. We should serve the poor because they are Jesus. Now that's taking it, in a whole different mind perspective, I've got to say, than what I would look at it. And then it goes on to say,
Jesus says that in the Bible, that when you
do it to the least of these, you do it
you're doing it to me.
To me. Yeah. And so what I thought about, y'all probably gonna think I'm crazy, so you probably already do. But thinking about these love languages, God speaks our love language, but we're supposed to use whatever our love language is to express our love back to God, and maybe we can use some of all of them to express our love back to God. But I was thinking as she said this, I'm like, when Jesus lived, how much love was he shown? Stuff like that pops in my mind. Now, I know that he had the 12, and I know Mary and Martha and Lazarus were important to him, and I feel like he was showed some love, but pretty much I feel like he led sort of a lonely, suffering type life in a lot of ways. And so I thought, he did so much for us, but now, because of what he did for us, every day we have an opportunity to love him, to say, I love you, and that's, to me, that's how this come across. And I agree with you, Linda. He did say, if you do it to the poorest of these, you do it to me. But as we do acts of kindness, or as we do words of affirmation, or whatever these are, as we have the potential of showing love back to God. That should be what means the most to us, is like, I'm loving God by doing this. He gets to know and sense I love him by me doing these things. That may sound crazy. Am I way off base, or y'all sort of follow with me with that? But really, all of this about Mother Teresa, I've got about each one of these paragraphs marked. So I'm not going to read all of them. But is there something else that really stands out, or something that you want to share from maybe pages 84 through over to the beginning of page 86? Anybody else got something you want to share with Mother Teresa?
I love at the bottom of page 84, if you really love one another, you will not be able to avoid making sacrifices.
And that sort of falls in line with what Brian was saying earlier. If that's your gift and stuff, then you're gonna do it. But if we really do love one another, we're gonna have to sacrifice some things. And just like us talking about not only loving God, but reaching up, but reaching out. It takes sacrifices to do that. That's good. I like that one too. That's definitely one of the parts I had. I've got about all this marked.
On the next page, at the bottom of that first paragraph, it says, let us not be satisfied by just giving money. Money's not everything. The poor need the work of our hands, the love of our hearts. Love and abundant love is the expression of our Christian religion. I think too many times people say, and we don't have the money to help like we would like to help, but and I'm not bragging, I just want to share this with you. We saw something about little kids with cancer right after Lucas was born, and we had no money. I mean, it was all we could do. But I had this hair that was just thick, and so I had it cut 8 times for lots of love. I had 81 inches of my hair cut to give. I think sometimes we just have to look for other ways instead of out of our pocket. That little wig meant more to a child who had no hair, you know, than if I had give her $25. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
I think that we get caught up in that financial, that money's easy, but I think we're required to do more than that.
Oh, yeah. Yep, I agree 100%. That's good.
And that's what she did, because she didn't have no money.
Yeah.
She was living poor as like they were.
Well, I'm trying to think, my mind, last week, the lady, the speech pathologist, what was her name? I can't think of her name right now, but you know, she was always giving somebody a gift, like when they left. And I think in remembering reading from that, if I remember correctly, because of her being so kind with her time and her gift that she had the ability to share with people, and then always giving somebody something when they left, there was a lot of kids and different people that came, maybe mowed her yard, raked her leaves. They did acts of service to show her their gratitude, like, or whatever. Type back. I just hit in my head, sort of, when you were saying that. Those kids may have not had money to buy her stuff or to get her something, but they were able to do something to show that they appreciated, you know, that didn't take the money to do it. So with Mother Teresa, is there anything else anybody wants to share there? Because I know there was a lot of good stuff in there, and there might be something else somebody wants to point out. But then I also want us to go over to page 90 in a moment after we have what we want to say there. And the second question has to do with this section on Mother Teresa. And so we'll look at it. Does anybody have any other comments there? Okay. Well, on page 90, question number 2, Edna, do you feel like reading it? Do you mind reading question number 2?
If someone like Mother Teresa spent time in your neighborhood, what needs do you think he or she would see that most others regularly overlook?
Now, I think this question is vitally important for Hopewell. In having the heart that everybody has here, wanting to help, and wanting to help in this community where God has placed us. So look at what that said again. If someone like Mother Teresa spent time in your neighborhood, I want us to be the people like Mother Teresa. What needs do you think he or she would see? What would we see that most others regularly overlook? What is something that we, or, you know, if Mother Teresa was here, what would she possibly see that we're overlooking? Something like that. Anybody got any ideas at all there?
I think a youth ministry is something we're all searching for.
Okay.
I think that we have tried and tried and tried, and we've been in valleys and peaks over the years.
Okay. So there's a need in our community to reach out to the youth. Okay. All right.
I think there's a need in the community to reach out to a lot of people. We have a whole lot more people who don't go to church than do go to church.
I agree with that.
And I think we need to reach out with love for those people.
And I agree. And I agree wholeheartedly. That's what I want our vision and our mission to be. But how do we accomplish that? Mother Teresa started a home for children. She started a home for lepers. She started a home for AIDS. She started a home for the unwed. She saw these needs, and then her heart was moved to do something. So that's how do we show that? No doubt, I agree with you, Linda. I really do. I've not rode around as much as I should, but just looking at this area that we're placed in, I know there's the 2 schools, but there's a lot of farmland and stuff. But there's a lot of little communities and pockets all out through the country here. And to give you an example, in Seagrove, not too awful far from us,
concerning.
when you start back towards the Moore County, or I don't know, would it be Chatham County back? There are several churches back in there that are pretty large churches. And I've shared that with Kathy. I know some of them, and I'd tell her, well, they got 200 or they got 250 people, and I preached at a preacher's thing here, and they had 200 or 300 people at this church. Now, these are country churches or whatever, and she said, where do they come from? Well, there's a lot of people out in it. There's a lot of people around here. And I know you've got Science Hill that's not too far from us. I know you got Brower's Chapel that's right here. And I know there's a few other churches too in this area. And I know there's several churches. But there's enough people in this area for all of these churches to be overflowing. None of us are, way beyond our capacity. And certainly with what God has given us here, there's the opportunity, tremendous opportunity for us to make an impact in this area because we've got room to house and do things.
Well, not only the poor, but, I mean, there are people out here that are hurting, that have money, that live in nice homes, that, and that's Brenda's calling to do these boxes. I mean, I think
That's a huge way. I think that is. Yeah.
I think, I look back at when they were doing the groceries, when they had the food pantry. Yeah, there's a lot of people that needed food, and they came for it. Rebecca and Kenny, they came for it. But a lot of those people just needed to know someone cared, someone loved them. And you gotta have something. Mother Teresa created things because she saw there was a need. We need to show people that we can meet a need.
That need. Yeah, meet
And how
different
do we
needs.
do that? Well,
Yeah.
we've got to create things.
Yeah.
It means building
But-
something or...
Which I know behind all of our motivation is God and want people to come into a personal relationship with God. That's the thing. But the other part, to be able to introduce them to God, you need to let them know that you care about them. You've got to do things that let them know that you care. So
Well,
yeah,
that's what Paul Brown did.
yeah,
By investing time in them, he wasn't preaching God to them, he was showing,
He was
living
Yeah.
God in front of them.
right. Yep, that's good.
It's so hard to do outreach though with the COVID. And
Oh, I know right now it is. I know
like
there's some
we set
restrictions.
up, water things and slides and stuff, but I don't know if this ever really resulted in anything. And right now, people aren't gonna come.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah. Oh, I know that it's a challenging time right now too, and I think we've adapted very well trying to have avenues just like Zoom and different things to reach out. And I'm praying at some point that there will be the opportunity to be more closely interacting with each other again and stuff. But to me, this is a prime time for us to be brainstorming and putting together game plans. Do you understand what I'm saying? God's given us some time to try to figure some of those things out.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
This time we're gonna be ready.
So we're ready. Yeah, I mean, that's, but just some food for thought there. I think that question about her can help us too as we look out in the community is what sort of gleaning from that. Now after her, there were several other things here. As the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. Start talking about Christ and his sacrifice and a lot of those type things. So on the rest of those pages, maybe 86 through 89, is there anything that jumped out at anybody that you would really like to share? I know besides Jesus washing feet, it talked about him preparing a meal for them on the shore. Certainly his healing people and calming storms and casting out demons, and he was constantly doing things for people. There's no doubt about that through all of his ministry. But maybe there's something in one of those sections there that really jump out at you that you would like to share. let's hit these last two questions on page 90. And if you've got anything to share, please do. Question number 3 was, how many volunteer organizations can you name in your area that exist primarily to offer acts of service to others? Now, I know, like in missions and outreach, there are some that we support and help and things of that nature. So I figure there's probably several things that we can think of here. How many volunteer organizations can you name in your area that exist primarily to offer acts of kindness to others? Our Daily Bread. Habitat for Humanity. I was wondering if y'all were going to say that or not. I thought Dreama would. Yeah.
CUFC.
Yeah. What are those? Christian Outreach.
Christian United Outreach.
Christian United Outreach. Yeah. Okay.
United of Southern.
I don't know what's happening, David and Dreama, but for some reason it's breaking up real bad when y'all try to talk. It's almost like it's in slow. Did y'all pick it out? Okay, now Dreama. You want to try again, Dreama? I'm sorry.
I said Christian United of Southern Utah. They so Christian down below.
Down
They
below
do
6.
so many things that people don't
realize that group does. Okay, all right. So I know we said Our Daily Bread. What is there another, the health department? Yeah, I guess the certain. What is the Salvation Army? Goodwill. There you go. What?
Social services.
Social services. Okay.
Our church.
Well, churches in our church, yes. It's God's church, but it's the church He's placed here. Yeah. What is the for the women pregnancies and stuff? What is Your Choice?
Family Crisis Center.
Family Crisis Center.
The Boys and Girls Club.
Boys and Girls Club.
Yeah.
What is that? What is one of the stories that we read in here? The Teen Challenge. Don't we have one of those in? I know in Greensboro, but is there one in Randolph County, Teen Challenge? I think, but several things of that nature. Okay, so good. Are there things you can do to get involved with one or more such services? So we already are interacting with some of those. And in some cases, I think maybe they can be springboards to help give us ideas, maybe to help out in a more local area right here. Did someone, I thought I heard somebody, no? Okay.
My granddaughter works at CUFC and she gets excited describing the services that they do for people.
Well,
some of these organizations we can't remember all of them, but if some of them done something wrong, we remember that.
That's exactly right. That's usually when they get more attention. Is when there's some bad connotation with it or something.
Is the fire
They get more.
department volunteer?
Some fire departments are volunteer. Yeah. I mean, is this one right here all volunteer? I think it is. So yeah, that's definitely something as well. All right. Last question, number 4. On a personal level, what acts of service have you done for others lately? Can you think of any opportunities you missed? But is there something that you've done for others? Now we know that Pete took work off of somebody's desk and helped them out today.
But I got paid for it. Does that
You may have got paid for it, but you would have still got paid if you hadn't helped them out, wouldn't you? So you still. I know a question like this, it's almost like you're tooting your own horn if you answer, but don't let that stop you from saying that you've done something. We're not looking at it as you're being prideful by sharing and expressing here. Okay?
Our card ministry.
The card ministry. Yep.
My little happy anniversary
Yep.
Is today your anniversary?
Yesterday.
Oh, happy anniversary.
And
It's already forgotten.
We got a phone call, we got Sunday.
Yes.
I've not done any for anybody else in the last month and a half, but I've had things done for me.
Okay. That's.
I bet you prayed.
So Renette says she's bet you prayed for people.
I have.
Yep.
I have.
Very good. Oh, this is not, again, this is not something recent, but there was a lady I think I may have shared with y'all when I first went to Rehoboth, and I was trying to get to know everybody, and one of the ladies that was there was having to do kidney dialysis on a regular basis, and it was pretty sad. But one of the things that was needful for her in the situation, not having a lot of family, is not only somebody just to spend some time with her. I certainly went with her when she went through treatments and stuff. But one of the things that I did that I enjoy doing, a lot of people don't enjoy this, I enjoy mowing. And so I mowed her yard for her. That was something that I could do, that I enjoyed doing. It was a help to her. And so she was just so appreciative of that, and it made me feel like I was a king or something by just how much it blessed her by me doing that or whatever. And so I know that a lot of you guys do a lot of things, acts of service, and I know a lot of you have probably done something today, but you're being very humble and don't want the people to think that you're tooting your horn. But I appreciate all that you do, and I know others do too. And so I think some of these, as we go through it, again, let's be praying for God to speak to our heart on other avenues that maybe we can reach out in a lot of these ways. I want us to do all we can to let people know that we care about them, that we truly do love them, and more than that, there's a God in heaven that loves them, that wants to save their soul and wants to give them a home in heaven. And as we're able to befriend them and get to know them, hopefully their heart will open up to the Lord. And that's what the main purpose is to get people to Jesus. And so that's what I want us to think about and work on and see what great things God can do. But acts of service, I hope that we all have that desire to do some, but I know there's some people within our congregation that is definitely their love language. They're always doing acts of kindness, and we appreciate it very much. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. I've been way too long. Let us pray. Father, thank you so much for this time together this evening. Thank you for allowing us to look in and glean from God speaks our love language. Thank you as looking at you speak the love language of acts of kindness, acts of service. And so as we've looked at that, we've saw Paul and Mother Teresa, and definitely we've seen how Jesus is a great example throughout his ministry of how he helped meet the needs of others, and how he continues even now certainly to meet our needs on a daily basis. And so we're just so grateful for that. And as we think about him washing the disciples' feet, he talked about that we should go and do likewise, that we should have those acts of service for others. God, help us to be mindful of that. Help us to be sensitive to the Holy Spirit moving and directing us. And as he does that, help us to step out by faith and do those things that are meaningful, that can be helpful in people's lives. Lord, continue to meet all the needs on our prayer list, all those things that we've shared tonight, and please help us to have safe travels as we go home. And we'll give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.